Good afternoon, everybody. Or yes, 12:01. Good afternoon. It's official afternoon in New York, where I'm based. I hope you're having a safe day. Well, let's not even dive into a happy day. I hope you do have a happy day. But what counts is if we have if we're safe and sound. That's the most important place to be in. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. My name is Olga, known as OnestPress across the socials. Today, we're going to talk about national news, but also global news. And of course, the latest news on special envoy Witkoff meeting with Putin, what went down there. Also, this new executive order issued by Trump that is punishing literally us, US consumers, who are buying Indian products. And given that 47% of our medication comes from India, it's pretty much going to affect everyone. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to also talk about why and what and how. And then we're going to dive more into global news. There's also negotiations happening between Mexico and Canada. So if you're from Canada, please stay here and we're going to discuss the details, and I'm going to share the latest updates as well. So first things first, yesterday we had the Tiddler on the roof. Trump was on the roof of the White House for no particular reason. Well, reporters, as I refer to them as fans, because it's just difficult to call these folks reporters, were shouting questions saying, "What are you doing here? What's happening?" So here's a bit of a little video.
Mr. President, what do you want to build? What are you trying to build? Sir.
And he was screaming that he's trying to build missiles. And then he says nuclear missiles on top of the White House roof. You want to make your White House a target more than it already is. And then he was doing gestures. I don't know what that is. Maybe you know. Something beautiful. They said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Something beautiful." Is that a woman? I don't know. So, well, a lot of questions, no answers. Maybe somebody should just lock the door or the pathway to the roof, because who knows? This is our president. Supposed to be limited edition. Hey, Brad, thank you so much for joining. You're gonna miss first 5-10 minutes. Okay, so we're waiting on you to join us. Hi, Stephen. Good Wednesday to all. Absolutely. Hey, Bonnie. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. If you don't mind it, please tap like and subscribe if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, because this will help the algorithm to show this video to more people who are interested in actual and factual news. So, more about Trump, but in another way. Yesterday, he naturally tweeted. And in his tweet, this is the tweet here. I know it's super tiny, but let me read it. I have it on my phone as well. So he talks about crime in Washington, D.C. He says it's totally out of control. Local youth and gang members, some only 14, 15, 16 years old, and randomly attacking, mugging, shooting innocent civilians. So what it is all about is that he then posted a video of a boy with a bloody nose. I'm not going to put it here because otherwise we're going to be blocked by YouTube or any platform that you watch it on. Essentially, he is renewing his threats of a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. If you have followed the news, not the clickbaity mainstream media news, but those who are in DC and the lawmakers in DC, this is nothing new. He has hinted upon it. Some people even say, people in the government who are now fired say that he promised Washington, D.C. to Peter Thiel. So we're going to see what will result out of it. But who was this guy with the bloody nose, if you ask? This is a young gentleman. He looks maybe 21, a former Doge employee who was attacked, as Fox News describes it, by a 15-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl, both from Maryland, and they now both face charges of unarmed carjacking. So, and Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department said on Tuesday that the investigation is pending and the suspects are being investigated and whatnot. So, they got them, 15-year-old boy and the girl, and they harassed this guy, and he ended up with a bloody nose. And all that is used for this tweet to propel this federal takeover of Washington, D.C. If you ask me, this is a huge situation. It is a dangerous situation. And well, as we use this as precedent, that's pretty remarkable. Now, in other news, Trump yesterday had this big meeting with his entire cabinet, who then somehow became the task force for the upcoming Olympic Games in 2028 in LA. And so Trump has created this White House task force for the Olympic Games. He will serve naturally as a chair, J.D. Vance as vice chair. And then the task force includes secretaries of state, treasury, defense, commerce, transportation, homeland security, attorney general, White House aides, FBI director, FCC chair, and other federal officials as designated by Trump or Vance. So nobody's an athlete. Nobody has any experience organizing anything of such caliber as Olympic Games. Well, the grift keeps on grifting. Now, in other news, as part of recent legal statements, Ivy League universities, Columbia University and Brown University will share applicant data, including race, test scores, and grades with the Trump administration. What will Trump administration use it for remains to be seen. Maybe they will draft another executive order saying that, look, those people are less than smart. We don't even need them, or something of that nature. Or maybe even claim that there's a lot of people coming from a certain country that are of a specific race that now this regime does not welcome. So it all remains to be seen, but it's interesting why White House is interested in this. Okay. Now, as to Epstein case, top Trump officials, including Susie Wiles, AG Pam Bondi, FBI Director Patel, and Deputy AG Todd Blanche are expected to meet tonight at J.D. Vance's residence to discuss strategy related to Epstein case. I guess nothing wrong is here and nothing to see, right? Just regular wrongdoing. Yes. Now, they also tried to make sure that both Clintons are showing up and are testifying about the case. As I mentioned yesterday, the idea here is diversion. The idea here is to scream squirrel and that everybody will look a different way. Again, my personal take on that is that even the sanctions on India and this whole debacle is nothing burger, and I will explain why and how, between India and Russia and sanctions, all that is also used so we stop talking about the Epstein files, and most importantly, that the MAGAville will stop talking about the Epstein files. So now, as to EPA, they have overturned greenhouse gas ruling. And so Senator Mark Kelly criticized the Trump administration for overturning the endangerment funding or finding, which had allowed federal regulation of greenhouse gases. He says, quote, "I could see our planet changing with my own eyes in just the 10 years between my first and last space flights." As we know, of course, Senator Mark Kelly is an astronaut. And he says, continued, "We should be working together to protect our planet, not undermining science." And I want to show you his speech, and his video is just 59 seconds, but I would love to feature people with the right mindset and knowledge. So take a look.
Hey, folks, it's Mark Kelly. Hey, the administration just overturned what's called the endangerment finding. So the EPA did this. And the endangerment finding is the thing that allows the government to regulate greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, hydrofluorocarbons. This is the stuff that is causing the planet to warm. And without it, the government can't regulate those gases. So the Trump administration, what they just did is they made it harder for us to deal with the issue of climate change, and the planet is warming up. I've seen this planet change from low Earth orbit over a period of 10 years, and it's going to continue to change unless we take the steps necessary to combat climate change. And Donald Trump and the EPA, his administration, is making solving this problem much harder.
In other news, we all are wondering, Trump wants to replace Powell, right? The head of Federal Reserve, with his man, maybe a woman, certainly a person that will serve Trump's interest, perhaps even personal interest. What we know now is that Secretary of Treasury Bessent is not going to be that guy. He said he's not interested. Well, perhaps Trump is not interested in appointing him. I guess that's how it works in this White House. But he did announce that he will not be the head of Federal Reserve. So when Powell is either gone or gone in any type of way, either removed or not. Well, removing him, by the way, it's illegal. So let's see how Trump will try to achieve that. Now, as to Maxwell, she is seeking to block grand jury transcript release. We're back to the Epstein case. She asked a federal judge to deny the DOJ's request to unseal Epstein grand jury transcripts. Meanwhile, the House Oversight Committee has subpoenaed the DOJ for related files. Now, I think given that Todd Blanche, the number two at the DOJ, has spoken to her, she is saying what she's advised to say. And the idea, again, for everyone is to put this to rest. Let's not talk about Epstein. Let's not talk about the names or whoever was involved with this case, because this will harm specifically this administration and the regime and the leader of the regime. So in other news, also on Twitter shitter, X now, the former CEO has been, fired or has stepped down a couple of weeks ago. Linda Yaccarino, the one that was running NBC's commercials or the program that was dealing with advertisers. Then she came to X, invited by Elon Musk. And now she has left Twitter or X and has joined as a CEO of eMed, which is a telehealth firm distributing things like Ozempic and Wegovy. So, questionable medication, but again, if this is what you prefer, this is all up to you. Now, in other news, and this is really important and this is really dangerous for all of us, all of what we're discussing today is dangerous, but this is specifically, targeting us as citizens and residents of the United States. So the Department of Health and Human Services, headlined by RFK Jr., is cutting $500 million from mRNA vaccine development programs. Now, vaccine scientist Dr. Paul Offit called Health Secretary RFK Jr.'s move a policy decision that contradicts scientific data. The mRNA vaccines are remarkably safe and effective, Offit said, and certainly this is what did save us during the COVID years. And now all that is removed and there will be no progress in that regard. So also Trump is targeting pharma industry with up to 250% tariffs. Trump told CNBC he'll announce pharma tariffs within a week, possibly starting low, but escalating to 250% to encourage domestic manufacturing, as if it was so easy to just decide it and do it. Doesn't work this way. But again, he also hinted at tariffs on Taiwanese-made semiconductors, not related to pharma, but ish. Pharma companies warned the tariffs could raise drug prices and hamper innovation. And of course, now given, we're going to talk about India and tariffs on Indian products in a bit, but again, since 47% of our medication, over-the-counter medication, comes from India, we will be paying more. Whether this comes through the tariffs on pharma industry or in Indian imports or semiconductors, all of that will be resulting in us paying more. Us who will be taxed more unless you're in a certain tax bracket, and us paying more for goods, for services, for medication, for existence per se. Now, as to taxes, we know there's this whole hoopla, going on there, started by the GOP that tries to restructure the districts in Texas to gain 5 more seats for them in the House. Now, Governor Greg Abbott asked Texas Supreme Court to remove Representative Jean Wu as a Democrat who fled the state with colleagues to block the GOP redistricting. So he says, quote, there must be consequences. Now, AG Ken Paxton, Texas AG, tweeted he'll pursue court orders to vacate the seats of absent lawmakers. And I want to show it to you here that it is true. He did tweet that. This is the order that he has issued. Now, Democrats are saying that they will not return. And the proposed GOP map could eliminate 5 Democratic House seats, as I mentioned, before the 2026 midterms. So for that reason, yes, we need to follow up on this case, but also California will be reacting if Texas will succeed with their plans. Also New York, the state of New York and Governor Hochul, she also said that she will be following up on that as well. Now, in New York here, we did vote to create an independent agency that would be dealing with districts, or assigning districts, but she is willing to remove that and change this in order to fight whatever GOP is trying to do in Texas and perhaps other states as well. So now, as to some defense news and the Golden Dome. Remember this whole idea with the Golden Dome, and Golden Dome will be saving us, and somehow Golden Dome doesn't really work unless you have Canada on board, because just get a map, just look at it. And how can we protect the United States if Canada and possibly Mexico is not being a part of it? But Lockheed Martin launched a prototyping hub for the Golden Dome. And this is sort of like this homeland missile defense system. At a missile defense symposium in Alabama, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, well, maybe he's a Pat Hegseth. Anyway, his office reportedly prohibited officials from discussing the Golden Dome, despite Trump's public enthusiasm for it. So on one hand, Lockheed Martin saying, well, we are doing this prototype and everything will be so amazing. But then you have the defense symposium in Alabama, and Hegseth is prohibiting anybody to talk about it because they cannot face any follow-up questions. So again, all is for show. Let's show the prototype, claim it, name it, figure it out type of thing. Again, doesn't work this way. So as to Army expands missile defense force by 30%. The U.S. Army plans to expand its air and missile defense force by 30%, adding 3 Patriot battalions and radars, 5 indirect fire protection battalions, and 7 counter-UAS batteries. Now, has nothing to do with Trump being on the roof and talking about nuclear missiles on top of the White House. But again, just wanted to state that. Now, as to global news, let's talk about Israel first. Israel will now allow select private businesses to resume importing goods into Gaza. Now, importing goods. There's not donating, it's selling. This all happened amid rising international pressure over starvation in the area. What we do know that 6 countries have dropped aid, have delivered aid despite Israel's, efforts to block it. And so now the situation is improving, but the question is, what will come next? And Netanyahu, as I reported to you yesterday, said that they're planning now a complete takeover of Gaza. Our Speaker Johnson in Israel said that West Bank belongs to Israel, and Israel really is very much aligned with the United States, and we share this coexistence, so to speak. So we see that the Trump regime is on board with Netanyahu. Netanyahu's equivalent of our DOJ, right? The Justice Department is investigating him, and so he's seeking to remove, or he actually signed an order removing the head of Justice Department in Israel, and then Supreme Court has blocked this decision, and so now this is sort of caught in that type of limbo. So will Netanyahu succeed with his plans or not? And then, as I mentioned yesterday, 600 defense advisors, former and current in Israel, Israeli advisors have written a letter to Trump urging him to stop Netanyahu from or taking over Gaza, from expanding this military operation, as they call it. But again, we'll see what will result out of it. Now, Norway ordered, it is connected to Israel, they ordered review of Israeli investments. And this is the first country to do so. So Norway's finance minister ordered the Sovereign Wealth Fund to review investments in Israeli companies due to Gaza West Bank concerns. The PM expressed alarm after reports the fund increased its stake in a firm supplying parts used in Israeli airstrikes. So essentially, they're investing in companies that not necessarily have direct involvement in this takeover of Gaza, but it does result in it. So they now investigating their aid and might as well stop it or withhold it. So as to Russia and India and how it's all connected. Of course, we woke up to this. Well, let's start here. Let's circle back first. Yesterday, Trump and Zelensky spoke on the phone. And here's a bit of a readout from Ukrainian side. In the US, we didn't even know that the call happened. There was no readout. Nobody talked about it. So it was all about this Olympic committee yesterday. So Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky spoke yesterday. The key points were they discussed possible new U.S. sanctions on Russia. The first of Trump's second term. There was no sanctions on Russia directly. So Zelensky cited intensifying attacks. June saw the highest civilian casualties in 3 years. They also mentioned that Denmark, Norway, and Netherlands and Sweden pledged to buy $1 billion worth of U.S. arms for Ukraine. Well, they're going to buy it from the U.S. Again, this is a pledge to buy. When you see reports that, oh my God, Norway and everybody bought already $1 billion worth of, no, it's a pledge to buy. Over the years, given U.S. can satisfy production-wise the need for it, which is all a big, large question mark. And the White House also hinted at biting sanctions if Russia doesn't end the war. Now, in the backdrop, Senate Democrats released a report blaming Trump's sanctions pause for enabling Russia's war effort. Certainly, this was started by the Democrats, of course. Now, as we know, Speaker Johnson has done everything to prohibit any vote on sanctioning Russia or anything that has to do with Russia. He pretty much extended the vacation, or not extended, but started the vacation earlier for the lawmakers, so nobody would be affecting this. And Trump said, I will be dealing with Russia myself. Now, how do they deal with that? Today, Witkoff met with Putin. The Kremlin has released this video, how they started their meeting. Regular, right? This is a murderer. He kills children. He kills civilians, but we're shaking the hand. We're putting the hand on the heart when we greet him. Okay, whatever. So here's a readout. Trump and Witkoff, and who is, by the way, a real estate person, has no clue about foreign diplomacy. Last time he attended the meeting alone. There was a woman translating, right? He doesn't speak Russian. So there was a woman translating. He said, oh my God, do you come from the U.S. Embassy? And she said, yes, yes, yes. And then later was turned out that she was an FSB agent working for Putin. So whatever the translation he receives is a one large question mark. So let's take this as a fact, right? He again attended the meeting alone. Putin again attended the meeting with the entire group of negotiators who were also negotiating with the Ukrainians in Turkey, who were also negotiating in other spots as well throughout the years. Again, we, U.S., are represented by a real estate guy with no knowledge who attends this alone without even a translator whom he can trust. So, as a result, Kremlin footage showed the beginning of this 3-hour meeting. As I showed you, the meeting took place 3 hours. They talked about whatever. And Kirill Dmitriev, who headlines this, talks with Ukraine in Istanbul, as I mentioned, he said that the dialogue will prevail. Though no deal emerged ahead of Trump's alleged Ukraine deadline set to expire on Friday, they said, well, it looks like we are some type of aligned, whatever that means. Now, after that, White House has issued an executive order. It was a big hoopla saying that U.S. is facing threats from Russia, and our national security depends on, on these threats and prohibiting those threats and blah, 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 blah. But the result of it was 25 additional percent added to the existing tariff on Indian imports. The tariff was 25%. Now, if we add this 25 more, it will be 50% in 21 days. If we look at the calendar, this would be August 27th. And remember, this date is important. I have a point with that. And so, yeah, well, they portray it as the idea is that India is buying crude oil from Russia, hence sponsoring the Russian regime and sponsoring ultimately the war against Ukraine. But if we look at the data, which we kind of like doing, right? Take a look. So, well, you see here, if it comes to Russian crude oil buyers, and thank you for this comment, by the way. I did fact check it, and somebody who put this together in a comment, thank you so much for doing so. Now, China buys 47%, India 38%, EU 6%. Now, when it comes to Russian gas, EU buys 37%, China 30%, Turkey 27%. As to Russian LNG exports, EU buys 50%, China 21%, Japan 19%. So here you would think that actually targeting China would make way more sense than targeting India. But Trump is afraid of targeting China. So all of this is really a bunch of nothing. So ultimately what it looks like, let's just, explain it as if we were 5 years old. Whatever we get from India, whether it is medicine, whether it is anything else, will cost 50% more. This cost will be bypassed to us, consumers, right? Whether it is companies that are importing and buying, whether it is ultimately consumers, we will be paying more because India buys oil from Russia. So we will be penalized for India buying from Russia. Please explain to me how this actually makes sense. Of course, Trump tweeted that India will be facing tariffs. He believes or sells the idea that India or anybody is paying the tariffs and not us. But ultimately, we do know. We have already 50% extra tariff on Brazil. Check coffee prices. Check anything that you buy that is imported. So now, we do have a tweet, by the way, from this Kirill Dmitriev. He said, "Thank you all for your kind wishes for a successful visit of Stephen Witkoff to Moscow. Dove and flags and dialogue will prevail." This is, if you know anything about Russians, this is very cheery. I don't know what Witkoff did or what type of, services he provided in that 3-hour meeting, but they were excited and delighted with whatever he did. Now, why this 21 days in terms of the tariffs? What we do know is, I have to go back. So, Russia is planning the offensive, right? And on several regions in Ukraine, 3 regions in eastern Ukraine to be exact. They have lined up the forces. They are prepared, right? Of course, it's China-sponsored and partially India-sponsored and even EU-sponsored, as you see here. Of course, Iran is helping with Shaheeds. Of course, the productions already has been transferred to Russia, and Russia is producing the Shahed drones in masses. Like there's 9,000 drones per week. So they started dropping leaflets. You probably don't speak Russian, but I'm going to show you how this thing looks like. It's a leaflet. It says citizens of this city, it's Pokrovsk region. It's near Donetsk, Lugansk. So there's a QR code that will connect whoever is scanning it, hence it's blurred, to a Telegram channel. And they say that, well, they're urging civilians to support the occupation. They say that the commanders are under orders to reach the city or cities, the Pokrovsk city, southern outskirts by September 1st. And so they're saying when you go to this telegram that is linked to this leaflet that's being dropped for Ukrainian citizens, that we're gonna, freedom is coming, we're gonna save you, and this all will happen in the last week of August. Now think about the sanctions on India on August 27. Nothing burger. Squirrel. Please don't speak about Epstein files, in other words. What else do we have for today? Let me check comments real quick. Steven says, I think Trump dismantled the group that oversaw Russian sanctions anyway. Yes, absolutely. Hey, Brett. Hello. That's great in-depth news. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Jared says, if you can't win, cheat, I guess. Yeah. I don't even know what you refer to, but it kind of fits everywhere. Martha says, hi, Martha. Hello from South California. Oh, yeah. Hi. Thank you for being here. The level of incompetence is staggering. Yeah. Or they pretend to be incompetent. It's like a snail, like a snake pretending to be, grass or whatever. Like you are pretending not to know about it, and you sell this idea, because I honestly, physically cannot imagine a president of the United States not understanding who pays the tariffs. Given they do get the numbers, the prices are up. Like, what are you talking about? Oy. Okay, so what else do we know? We have comments from the, Senior Vice President of Asia Society Policy Institute and former Deputy U.S. Trade Representative. Brilliant. And she says, this turnaround in bilateral relations between India and U.S. has occurred quickly, and neither side can afford to be at odds with others. Beijing is most probably welcoming these developments and may take modest steps now to improve its relations with Delhi. Of course, because anything that Russia will lose, China will win. Ultimately, everything that does happen actually benefits China. So also the war against Ukraine. It's time for U.S., she says, and Indian officials to try and work out their differences in private. Then Farwa Amar, director of South Asia Initiative, says that the next round of negotiations between trade teams in August will ask more of India, but the question is, what would India give? And so India then issued a response. And pretty much in their response, they're telling United States to, do something different with their time. The United States, they say, has in recent days targeted India's oil imports from Russia. We have already made clear our position on these issues, including the fact that our imports are based on market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that the US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interest. And they're right. You saw this thing, right? You saw this. That's what they're referring to. They're not alone. They're just doing the bare minimum, compared to others. Now, it is therefore extremely... Okay, we reiterate that these actions are unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. In other words, go and do something to yourself. We're not changing our strategy. Also, there's things like Portugal, right? EU, middle of Europe, has contracts to buy or to continue buying oil from Russia till 2038. Like, there's contracts. I know that Trump has no respect, or this administration has no respect to any signatures or any contracts or agreements at all. But other countries do, because they will never put their citizens in danger because of some type of tariff that was made up. Right. And then again, we have another 3 weeks, and the offensive is also in 3 weeks. And also, how can you even do business right now with the United States when you don't even know when you import the product, they will be stuck at customs? let's say in some port, and you don't even know what it will cost you to import this product. And then the expiration date is coming near, and then what? How's that going to go? It's the same story as this. I was reading this article about Florida and their real estate market, because a lot of Canadians who owned property in Florida are selling. And so the prices are going so much down that others are pulling their offers off the market, because then otherwise the Florida, real estate market will really dunk. Is that a strategy? I mean, for Canadians, do you expect to enter the United States in the next 3.5 years, or others who now have to either purchase this $5 million green card to enjoy the air in the United States or whatever you get with it, or pay this $5,000 to $15,000 visa bonds or whatever? And everybody, by the way, pays this fee, I think $250 when they enter the United States, which should be returned. If you don't overstay, you're welcome. But they have no system to issue those returns, which is pretty interesting. So in other news, we're sticking with Europe and we're sticking with Spain. Spain dropped the hammer today. They're canceling the F-35 purchases from the United States. Spain has shelved plans to buy US-made F-35 fighter jets and is instead choosing between the Eurofighter and FCAS, the Defense Ministry has confirmed. And if you ask me, I think Canada will be next that will be dropping this order. So, as to Bangladesh, interim leader Mohammed Yunus said Bangladesh will hold elections in February, 1 year after student-led protest ousted PM Sheikh Hasina. Yunus pledged to honor reform demands, and just long overdue if you follow that up. Now, as to Rwanda and US, there's a whole thing. Well, Trump says he stopped the war in Rwanda. Yeah, he's not referring to 1994. He's referring to now. But the whole idea why he's doing it, because he wants to deport people to Rwanda. And today it came out that Rwanda will take in 250 deported migrants from the US as part of this broader undisclosed migration deal. Question is, who are these people, right? So similar US agreements exist with Eswatini and South Sudan. Who are these 250 people? Do they have any connection to Rwanda? Can they find it on the map? I don't know. We don't know. Also, the reports, and I shared it from New York Times about even New York, right? In New York, ICE and deportations were not as successful. If you saw these videos when they would go to Harlem and get beaten up, or they go to Queens and face some other situation there. So they decided and found success in this strategy to pursue this in sanctuary cities. So they issue this real or fake invitation to come to the court, either to pick up a document or to be seen or whatever the case may be. And folks are coming into Federal Plaza building in downtown Manhattan and get detained. And the New York Times did a great job, although I don't like what they're doing most of the time, but here they did a fantastic job showing the building. And they said, look, they have the ICE checkpoints on 3 levels. On 1 level, they have a prison, which is supposed to be temporary confinement for people who, let's say, entered the United States illegally. This is sanctuary city, so they would go to Federal Plaza building. They would sit there for a few hours until their case is processed, and then they're let go. Some detainee managed to smuggle an iPhone or a phone and recorded a video and put it online, showing this overcrowded room with a toilet right in the middle of the room. People are passing out. People are even passing away. So all of that is happening. And with that strategy, ICE managed to detain over 1,700 people in Manhattan alone, in New York alone. And so given these borders are home, and he said that they will double down on their efforts to detain people in sanctuary cities. So that is the strategy that they're using right now. Back to international news. Turkey will fund industrial zones in Syria. Yesterday, I mentioned that in Syria, they're fighting. the two type of armies are fighting within, even though they agreed to create sort of a common force. Now, Turkey announced plans to build industrial zones in post-Assad Syria, aiming to revive the local economy and bolster trade, which has already surpassed 2024 levels. And this is good news, because when they're going to get money, when they're going to get jobs, when they're going to get people busy with doing what benefits the country and people themselves, then certainly this conflict will decrease in the numbers. Now, South Korea will allow visa-free travel for Chinese tourists now from September 29 to June 2026, signaling improved relations. China began a similar pilot program last November. When it comes to North Korea, they opened free travel and tourism with Russia. 13 Russian influencers flew on this first direct flight to North Korea to show the beaches and how fantastic this whole thing is. So North Korea and Russia are opening their travel, and South Korea and China, whereas United States, nowhere near. So as to Taiwan, Taiwanese authorities detained 3 current and former TSMC employees. Those are the trade secrets case over alleged trade secrets theft. The first such case under Taiwan's 2022 tax security law. So essentially, same as what I told you in Moldova, where they started detaining people who are aiding Russian interest or Russia's interests. The same thing is happening in Taiwan here as well. And finally, as to Canada and Mexico discussions, they're talking about boosting trade and AI cooperation. And of course, they're talking about creating this direct corridor for trade bypassing the United States. So Canada and Mexico agreed to strengthen cooperation on trade, that corridor, right? Energy security and AI development. Despite growing U.S. tariff pressures, Mexico recently received a tariff pause from Washington. Sheinbaum is negotiating with Trump, saying she will invest more in combating fentanyl trade and, crime, whatever the steps will be taken, but she is not in favor of Trump sending drones or troops inside Mexico. But she is doing a good job prolonging that type of, any type of tariffs imposed on products from Mexico. Now, as what is coming up today at 4:30 p.m., this is the only thing on Trump's schedule today. It says, quote, President Trump will make a very important announcement in an Oval Office. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, there's one Oval Office, but a very important announcement. I don't know what this is. It's at 4:30 p.m. Again, just don't talk about Epstein files. That's what it is. Now, tomorrow, higher U.S. tariff rates will take effect on several trade partners, from Brazil to Japan to Indonesia to European Union to UK to everybody, right? So this was announced to take place on August 7th, and this will come. Now, as to Russia's deadline, this is August 8th, Friday. So we'll see what will be there. I think nothing. And what I wanted to preview, and I will put that in today's newsletter. If you are in New York, there is a fantastic event happening this Saturday, Sunday. If you like jazz music, if you like 20s, it's a really fun event. And I will be interviewing their founder and the band to feature that in the Sunday edition. I know we're jumping from politics to Sunday edition, but I wanted to preview it, and I wanted to invite you to explore this event. It's on Governor's Island, and I'll put it in our newsletter today in case you are in New York or are visiting. So if you want to go there, and I'll be there for sure on Sunday. So wanted to mention that. Be on the lookout in today's newsletter, and also let me know how you like our new schedule. 12 p.m. I go live. I try to keep it under an hour. Well, I aimed for 20 minutes, but it never worked that way. Because I really want to ensure you get some commentary, because I really stick to just facts and dry data in our newsletters. So we have short newsletters Monday through Friday on honestnetwork.com, ONEST network.com. I do have banners. Yes. Boom. Here you go. So it's free. You can sign up and get the short newsletters. On Saturday, we're going to have a deep dive, so longer newsletter format like we had before, with like today in history or this week in history, in this case, some analysis on national news of the week, global news of the week, articles that I'm writing throughout the week. So you're going to get sort of a bit of a deep dive, and you can use your weekend if you decide so to take a, to read it and get some more information and some more news. And then on Sunday, we have the No Politics Sunday edition. And we're going to have some interviews coming up for that as well with politicians and more. So I will announce that soon as well. All righty, we're done. Please like this. Please subscribe if you're watching and you haven't subscribed or liked it, so other people can be alerted about this content. Jared says, so his big announcement will be 90-day pause on tariff. Right. Jared, I think you're onto something. Yes. And Oval Office. Yeah, it's an Oval Office. In an Oval Office. We have a bunch of different Oval Offices at this point. F-35 debate, Brad says, has been going on for as long as Justin Trudeau has been PM. Right? Yeah, that's the story. I mean, Spain did it. Canada, come on. Also, like, we should not forget the fact that if you buy something from the United States and you're going to use, God forbid, your F-35s against a third country, there is a rule where U.S. will have a decision to make to allow you or not allow you to use it against a third country. This is just one rule that applies to any purchases of military equipment from US. As a Canadian, you can't. His word means nothing. Right. And Bonnie says, we are in a fascist kakistocracy. I agree. And I think that summarizes everything. So, hey, Laura, hi. Thank you so much for being here. And Steven says maybe the announcement is he's delaying the so you both are so Jared and Steven, you're aligned. I'm with you. Thank you. And thank you. So I'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. for another round of this mess where we dig through it and we try to survive it. Keep your head on a swivel, stay upbeat, shut down the news. I will put out whatever he says at 4:30, whatever that announcement will be. If you don't like the voice, the visual, whatever, don't tune in. Prioritize you. It's a marathon. You don't want to pass out today, honey. We have at least 3.5 years of this. And based on whatever they're doing with the White House, probably longer. So thank you so much for being here. See you tomorrow. Have a safe day. And on Blue Sky and wherever, I'm going to update you throughout the day. See you tomorrow.